The Honourable Member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
I want to start this debate by reading out the motion in question here by the NDP. And in it, so far I've heard some of the comments primarily from the government side, and it's been, I would have to say, a collection of 4 months of mixed metaphors, mixed messages as to why indeed this prorogation exists in the first place. But let me just get to the motion first, which I support. I support this motion. The thrust of it is exactly what this House needs in order to attain the supremacy of this House, which I do firmly believe in, and I think all members do, unless placed under a cone of silence. That in the opinion of the House, the Prime Minister shall not advise the Governor-General to prorogue any session of any Parliament for longer than seven calendar days without a specific resolution of the House of Commons to support such a prorogation. And therein lies the thrust of this, which I do wholly support, which is to say that the House of Commons to support such a prorogation. Now, let's put the clock back for just a moment and let's paint the picture of what we've seen. Today, I've seen 3 different responses as to why this recalibration was to take place. Christmas, I heard the reasoning of many individuals. Now, here is my favorite. This is the one that really, I guess, made me smile, laugh at them, not with them, mind you. One member, my honourable colleague from the Conservative Party, said, we need, and wait for this, because this is really good, we need to wait and put our attention on the Olympics. Well, my goodness. Now, I have no doubt that the 2-man bobsleigh team of this country is very excited and very thrilled to have these members of Parliament rooting for them at home with their feet up, drinking a nice hot cup of coffee. As a matter of fact, poor Pierre Lueders never even stood a chance. He never got to the point where he wanted to, and the government is to blame. Now, how absurd is that? But to basically say that we need to shut down the House here because we need to focus on the Olympics, well, my goodness, that had to be at the pinnacle of why you'd shut down a functioning House such as this and a democracy such as that. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous at the time. So then, the answer had shifted in many directions. So what I called it was the prorogation that ran madly off in all directions. We had one answer about the Olympics. We had another answer about the Economic Action Plan. But here's what I don't understand. And I won't even condemn them on this one, but I do have a lot of questions about this. We need to implement the second phase of our Economic Action Plan, so we need to shut down the House. So one has to ask, what changed? Nothing really changed. The money rolled out as they say it did, under the way that they said it was going to. There was nothing in the way of, well, let's take money from here and put it here. The deadline was January for major projects in my riding. Everything was proceeding, as they say, as normal, or maybe it wasn't. Was it or wasn't it? The only thing that really changed was the fact that they did not renew the tax credit for home renovations. Well, you don't need to sit around for over 30 days to realize that you're not going to do something. Where was the vision? I expected a modicum of vision to come away from this particular situation of prorogation. Instead, I was told I had to leave, go home, and watch the Olympics. Now, I didn't get to watch much of the Olympics because I was working in my riding. Like many of you, I'm sure you did. But can you not walk and chew gum at the same time? I mean, members of Parliament, I ask you, can we not elevate ourselves to be smart enough, to be talented enough, to do 2 things at once? Well, maybe on this side, maybe. And that was a catty remark, and I apologize to my honourable colleagues. But I say this because there's a whole heap of scorn being thrown upon us for what has happened. It's not the time to be doing this, and it's not the venue by which that we should be. Let's have a look at prorogation. What exactly is it? One of the definitions is that basically you have to close down the House because the bulk of the work has been done. Professor Errol Mendez, University of Ottawa, says, a proper democratic use of the prerogative power is a legitimate power to end one session of Parliament after a substantial part of the legislative agenda has been fulfilled, leading to a new speech from the throne. That's what he says. And I see the nodding heads, and therefore we all agree. Here's what else he had to say about this particular one. The use of the prerogative power by the Prime Minister in December of 2008 and again in December of 2009, notice the lapse of time there, pretty short, has been used instead to avoid democratic accountability and transparency. Now, here's the best part. Remember I talked about the Olympics? Remember we talked about the fact that they had to recalibrate with the Economic Action Plan? I mean, my God, if the Economic Action Plan had to be recalibrated, rejigged, then it really wasn't much of a plan to begin with. But we can go on and on about that for quite some time. Here is the best part. Here's one of the other parts you talked about. Every time we asked him, why did you shut down Parliament? Well, actually, it's normal because these guys did it. Because this party did it. Because that government did it. Shame on them, and shame on them. Well, congratulations. The government has now become everything that they said they would never be. And that's the issue. That's the crux of it. Every time they're in trouble, it's always turn around, spin, this way. Madam Speaker, in Atlantic Canada, you see there's this fish. And it's called the flounder. And the flounder swims along. It's like a flatfish. It's got two eyes on one side. And it swims along, and whenever it sees trouble, it flips, rolls over, and goes back in the other direction. So here we have this government floundering its way through excuse after excuse after excuse. I mean, at times, it becomes absolutely comical. It's like an episode of Yes Minster from BBC. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it continues. This what I call a little bit of a charade continues. Because they talked about the fact that we recalibrated, we came back to the House, and guess what we're going to do? We're going to change the national anthem. And that's the best that they could do. Change the national anthem. I mean, sincerely, only to 48 hours later, be like the flounder that I described, back in the other direction. There is indeed something fishy about it, yes, as my honourable colleague pointed out. But the issue then becomes, where is the vision? Does this party not have the vision by which that they can see beyond this particular point? Did you not know that Canadians would be upset to change the national anthem? Did they not know that they would be upset by shutting down internet sites under the CAP program? 48 hours later, you remember the fish? Back the other way. You know what that says? It's vision. They don't have. It's a lack of it. 5-year programs relegated to 1-year funding. Here. Now be quiet. I mean, seriously. So this is the recalibration that we're discussing. My colleague is so amused by this, but, you know, the truth can sometimes be quite amazing. So, to top it all off, at the end of the day, what does the world think of what we're doing here? Because they keep talking about this, that, the OECD. Let's look at The Economist. Yes, that's right. I'm quoting from The Economist. Ned Franks says, far from completing its work, Parliament here was still considering important measures, including bills that are part of the Prime Minister's crackdown on crime, as well as ratification of free trade agreements with Colombia and Jordan. All must be reintroduced. So The Economist asks, why shut down Parliament? Didn't make sense to them. A lot of people around the world thought the same thing. Rather bizarre. The British Columbia legislature stayed open during the Olympics. They didn't feel it necessary to focus on the Olympics by being off work. I guess for some reason we do, for some odd reason. They didn't have to recalibrate. They kept pursuing with their agenda. Thank you, Madam Speaker.